Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
When all set, cocked, locked, here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Jason is engineering the broadcast, and we're talking about the circus and the intergalactic disgrace. These two guys. I want you to think about this class. They were applying for a job. They were literally applying for a job. And the people who would be selecting them for the job were watching the circus. I understand. I understand that the president is frosted. I get it. By the way, I even heard Rush Limbaugh use the word frosted. I wonder if he got that from us. I heard him use it yesterday. I was in the truck with Mrs. Finelli. He used that word. Anyway, these two guys are battling it out, and I understand why President Trump was frosted. I really do. Because he even said it, he's surrounded by this swamp. These people are trying to pull him down. No matter what he does, he gets beat up. And it's even over him and under him. So I understand why he did it. But he didn't act presidential. And the other guy, the plagiarist, didn't act, he tried to act presidential, but he lost it as well. And the moderator lost it, Chris Wallace. By the way, he's Mike Wallace's of 60 Minutes fame son, in case you didn't know that. And it seems that a lot of people who are in the business of the media are I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. That's the kiss of death. Anyway, it was a sad state of affairs last night, in my opinion. And, the whole family watched it, and we were just shocked that, it was a slugfest. Calling the president a clown, the guy who used to be the vice president, the guy who's been, on the dole for 47 years, who hasn't gotten anything right, that guy calling the president a clown. Twice. What was he thinking? And it was really interesting to hear about, hearing Jumpin' Joe, the plagiarist, being accused of being, at the bottom of his class and not remembering what school he went to, Delaware State or University of Delaware. Those are two different schools. It's pretty hard to get them mixed up. But I guess, Joe's able to do that. Wow. I mentioned that I'm sitting this one out. I'm not going to vote for either one of those two guys. Now, I really would much prefer that President Trump continue another 4 years slugging it out with the corruption. But it's really hard. It's really hard to vote for someone who does not act presidential. He's a combatant. And there's a time and place for that. And maybe we're here. And that is the signal that we are in deep decline. To see something like that, it's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage. And Chris Wallace could not manage the debate. And if you look him up, and I did, his information on Wikipedia says that, he's like the guy. He's like the guy that is known for managing these debates. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. And what he really should have done was said, look, guys, the entire country, the world is watching you. Do you really want to do this? How about agreeing to stay with the rules that you agreed to, right? But he didn't do that. Well, he tried to, I guess, in some ways, but he wasn't firm enough. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
I'm embarrassed.
Aside from being frosted and embarrassed.
Well, I was thinking, not only is the United States of America in decline, the monarchy is in decline as well. And we mentioned on this broadcast that it seems like Meghan Markle is almost single-handedly destroying the crown with her ridiculous antics. What do you think about that?
I don't know what she's done lately. I see her face appear, I just don't click on it anymore, which says something in itself. Yeah.
Well, what she has done is she's making claims to be involved with a $150 million deal with her husband, Harry, who wants to be distant from the royalty, but he wants to be royal, but not yes, no. And he wants to be, find his own source of income, but it's really hard to do. And he's trading on skills that he doesn't have. And she wants to be free, but she doesn't really want to be free. She wants the limelight. And so they're taking pot shots at the crown. And the Queen doesn't like it all that much. And she wants to distance herself from them. But yet what they're doing is exposing how much the crown costs the villagers. So, for example, she is involved in a layoff, right? She is laying off hundreds of people who, clean, sweep, shine, polish, clip the grass, that kind of stuff, maintain the buildings. That's for starters. And that's because tourism is down. They don't have the revenue. So what's happening is the villagers are figuring out, where does this money come from that supports the crown? Well, it comes from fees and taxes. And now they're realizing how much this monarchy costs them. And I have a feeling that when the Queen finally expires, I'm not looking forward to it, but when she does, we all do, that will be like the last stand for the monarchy. Does that set with you or not?
Well, I think that Prince William will be the king, okay? But he's going to have a real challenge of putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. And I don't know if that will be possible. But like I said, I had a dream many years ago where I saw Princess Diana, and she said that Wills needs to prepare himself to be the king. And that's the reason why I'm saying that. But he's not going to have a very pleasant inheritance, at least not initially. And he's got to have a task to try and put it all back together again. And I think that probably his one saving grace is that Princess Diana was so loved, and that maybe he will be able to draw on some of that goodwill from his mother to try and put things back together again. But the days of, the royal family kidnapping children and going and having good times on Ireland with them and all this sort of thing, that's over. Prince Philip, is just so hated. And I have been seeing videos coming up on YouTube and all of that, like saying, why the Queen Mother hated Prince Philip so much. And I went to myself, I wonder why. I wonder what she knew. Because actually the Queen Mother, I didn't know her personally, but my grandmother knew the Queen Mother personally. And she said that she was a very, very nice lady. She was a very good lady. So, and that was I never met my grandmother, but that was what, that was the impression that my mum gave of what, because, I mean, she used to talk about that. My grandma, she used to talk about how she was friends with the Queen Mum, as she would. I mean, if any of us was friends with the Queen Mum, we'd be telling the whole world about it as well, right? But she said, no, the Queen Mum was an absolutely lovely lady, but I think that the rest of I think that the Queen made a huge mistake in marrying Prince Philip. That guy's a monster. He comes from a whole family of literal monsters, not even kidding, that lived in a castle in Transylvania and are very proud of the fact that their direct male line goes straight back to Count Dracula. They're literal monsters, not even kidding. And I think the Queen made a huge mistake in marrying him, and that that she's reaping it now, unfortunately. Yeah, but oh my gosh, it's a real kettle of fish, that one. And what I have heard on the internet, on YouTube and that sort of thing, is about the Queen threatening to, stop Harry and Meghan from using the HRH title, their Royal Highnesses, although I don't know what she could actually do to stop them. I don't think there is much she could actually do to stop them, because I think they're going to do what they jolly well please, as they have been. But I think you're right. I think that they're pulling down the monarchy. And it's really ironic because, hundreds of years of insurrectionists and anarchists of the very worst kind, communists and all the rest of it, couldn't pull down the British royal family. It was always there. And now they're falling apart from the inside. And it's actually not a pleasant sight to see. There's a lot of people who are anarcho-capitalists. I would count myself as an anarcho-capitalist, who would be happy to see the royal family go. But I would like to point out to them what happened after the Romanovs in Russia were toppled. It was really, really, really bad. And I think that I've been saying for quite some time that that's what the globalists have planned for Britain. That in one way the Queen is one of them, and in another way she's in the way for what they want to do, because they want to make Britain into a communist or socialist dystopia. And the Queen is standing in the way of that, and the people who are marching in Trafalgar Square are standing in the way of that. And, I say good on them. I'm absolutely in favour of what they're doing. But I think that they're about to be met with a lot of really, really vicious force, and they better get ready for it. And I'd like to
We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Guineith, you wanted to tell us to get ready for what?
Okay, we have got something huge coming down the tracks here in Australia, but also in America. And I sent you a email a little while back with a screenshot on it from a website called Deagle. That's DEAGEL.com. Oh, by the way, before I go any further, if anyone wants to find me on Facebook, you're not going to find me on Facebook anymore. Okay? Instead, I have a website. It is www.guineithisaacs.com, and on that there is at the top, It has the menu bar, and there is a menu option called blog. I have a blog there, and usually if I mention something in the broadcast, I'll try and remember to put it up on the blog site, okay? This is something that is definitely going to be on the blog site, what I'm about to mention. It's a screenshot from a web page called Deagle.com. Anyone can go and look it up. What they do is they do military analysis of various countries, military hardware spending, their GDP, their population, and so on. And I don't know who runs it. I think the CIA runs a similar website, but this is apparently a private military contractor version. And they say that we are going, in Australia, that we are going to go in the next few years from our current population of 23 million people to 15 million people by 2025. Somebody has that plan for Australia. And Deagle.com let the cat out of the bag. A well-respected military analytics website, but one that very few people outside of the industry would have heard about. And they let the cat out of the bag that somebody is planning to do away with 8 million people of the Australian population. And if you go through this list that they have, you'll find that almost every country is, according to them, going to suffer a similar monumental population loss. And you might think, oh yeah, they're just countering in the coronavirus and so on. They put these figures together in 2017 because you'll see another set of statistics that they have, which is their baseline, is actually 2017 is their baseline. So it's what's going to be in 8 years' time from when they put these statistics together. So they were saying that back in 2017, that by 2025, that Australia's population is going to go from 23 million to 15 million people. That's 8 million people are going, well, something's going to happen to them. And that magnitude of population loss has only happened a few times within a short period of 4 to 5 years in the whole history of the world. One of them was the Irish potato famine, which was horrible, and it was a genocide. Another one was the Nazi Holocaust, which was horrible and was a genocide. There's some sort of pattern coming through here, Vincent. You know, they've got something really, really bad planned for us. And their American figures, I think that they're planning for the American population in 2025 to be something like 150 million people. And I'm not 100% sure of that figure. That's just from my memory. But like I said, I will look it up. And I will post it on my blog site at GuineithIsaacs.com tomorrow, because that is something that we all need. That's a massive heads up.
We'll be right back. And that's Guineith Isaacs, Isaacs. We'll be right back. Hey, Guineith, somebody doesn't like what you're saying. And the reason I say that is just as you were saying that, I got knocked off the internet, and
wow.
I just got connected just a couple seconds. I mean, literally a couple seconds as we were coming back. And so if this ever happens again, Guineith, just if the rejoiner plays and we're waiting for Vinny and he's not there, just take over, okay, until I can reconnect.
I'll do that.
Okay? Yeah. So just. Let's keep that in mind. That's for all instructors class. So if you're an instructor and you're waiting for me to, rejoin after a commercial break, and I don't, just take over. And when I reconnect either by telephone or however I do it, the engineer will let you know, and I'll let you know I'm back. So things are getting unpredictable. So
to the pointy end of things.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention I was going to send you an email, but I couldn't do that during the break because I lost the connection. I went to GuineithIsaacs.com, GuineithIsaacs.com. Website's there, but it has a link to Republic Broadcasting. We are no longer on Republic Broadcasting.
Okay,
so
I'll remove that.
Yeah. Okay. So you were saying that you're talking about the 23 million in Australia, and the reduction is indicated by Deagle's, the website, and in America, 23 million down to 15 million by 2025. By the way, that is the same timetable as the governor of California said. Gasoline-powered cars will no longer be available. New cars, you can't put them on the road in California in the year 2025. Is that just a coincidence? Or did they just say, let's see, how far away? 15 years. Let's just do it in 15 years. Is this some magic date? Or are these guys all in it together to reduce the population and reduce the automobile, gasoline-powered automobiles in California by edict? It's a executive order by the governor of California. There'll be no new sales of gasoline-powered cars at the date of 2025. No more after that. Now, just think about this. This is insanity because the grid in California is so stressed they can't transmit the electricity that is required now. So adding electric cars and people charging them through their smart meters is insanity if it's a fair and open society. If it's not, then electric cars would be great for the government because they could say, you know what? We're not going to charge any cars tonight. So if you think that you're going to go someplace in 2036, 16 years from now, with your new electric vehicle, and they shut off the power for the charging of your electric vehicle, which they can do remotely with a smart meter, you're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. And if you think that you can pull into the equivalent of a gas station and charge your electric car in the 5 minutes it takes you to fill up your tank, that doesn't happen. If you want to charge up your car gently and carefully so the battery bank will last a long time, it will take a day or two to charge your car to go, let's say, 100 miles. This electric car panacea is not. It is a trap. It is an absolute trap. And unless you have a solar array and you can charge your own vehicle and you only want to go 100 miles, which would be like 50 miles each way, then the electric car is a trap. And you got to be crazy to buy one. That's with a capital C. Crazy. Because of the charging. And so why are electric cars in vogue? Well, that would be because they allegedly don't pollute, which is pure nonsense. If you don't think radioactivity pollutes, you've lost your mind. And we don't know what to do with the byproduct of nuclear reactors. We have no idea what to do with it. There's no place to put it. Well, maybe we should put it in Washington, D.C. Y'all want nuclear power? No problem. We'll just bury it under the White House. How about that? Nobody wants it. Not only does nobody want it, nobody wants it to cross their highways. Would you be happy to know that containers of radioactivity would be going down the interstate in your neck of the woods? I doubt it. Gwyneth, you're absolutely right. These are awful times. And we made them. Well, not we, but sick, silly, demented, deranged, evil people have brought this all on us. All on us. And even the presidential debate was lopsided. And it's not a debate. You call that a debate? A debate would be two guys or two gals or a guy and a gal or a gal and a guy putting forth statements about something, pro and con. This is different questions were asked. Not entirely, but different questions were asked of each of the performers on the stage last night. That's not a debate. Chris Wallace he said he made up the questions. Who is he? And if you had a chance to watch the prelude to the circus last night, as I did, you got a chance to see how great the healthcare system and the building and each other were. It was like a mutual admiration society on stage, patting each other on the back for like 40 minutes. It was awful to watch. Awful. It was nauseating. And then what followed was nauseating. I'm sorry to say it, but we are in a world of hurt, and there's no leadership. We have a bunch of hotheads running the show, and one guy has Alzheimer's. At least in my opinion, he does. What a mess. And why? And the guy with the big hair, why is he a hothead? Because he's being beat up 24/7, 365. And I can understand it. I would not want his job. I wouldn't want to be that guy. No matter what he does, he's accused of doing it for nefarious purposes. He's accused of getting it wrong. Everything he does. Everything. If he got up early in the morning, well, what's he doing getting up early? If he sleeps late, what's he doing sleeping late? If he goes on the golf course to talk about problems and get away from the swamp, what's he doing on the golf course? He can't win. It's a mess. And the country is divided. And because of this division, I believe that what will happen at the end of this selection will be chaos. Further degradation of the supply chain. Dog eat dog. Mad Max. All of those things. It will escalate, escalate, escalate. And, if you think about it, at the end of a war, let's call it the War of Northern Aggression, 1865. So the president says, hey, it's all over. We're done. We've signed the agreement. There will be no more hostilities. It's over. Do you think that guy, that family man who just lost his son to the other team is going to say, well, I'm glad it's over? Or do you think he's going to want retribution and say, you know what? I just want to kill one more of the other team because they killed my son. What I'm telling you is it's not over instantly. It lingers. And this thing is going to be protracted. Guineith, any comments?
Well, I would say, I remember seeing video clips from the 1980s and 1990s, which I guess is close enough to today. I guess that the same attitude has carried on through to the 21st century, of where if people were from the north and they went for a holiday down the south, that, the southerners might let them go and spend their money in the south, but if they wanted to move there, they weren't going to allow that. That's the truth of it. And you would probably have a bit more experience of that than I would, Vincent, but that's just what I've heard.
Well, it's true. It's absolutely,
yeah.
It's true. And I'll tell you the name of there's a saying. There's a couple sayings. One is, welcome to the South. We'll be glad to take your money. Now I'm talking about the political South, like Virginia, and south of Virginia. Okay. And so where does the South begin? Well, people would say the Mason-Dixon line. That's around Delaware and Maryland. But if you ask a Southerner where the South begins, they'll say it begins at Richmond, which is south of the Mason-Dixon line. So the South begins in Richmond. And the saying is, welcome to the South. We'll be glad to take your money. What that really means is you can visit, but you got to go home. Okay. So if you're a Yankee, you can visit, spend your money, and go home. And there's another saying. And when I lived in Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, I was called a damn Yankee. And there's Yankees and damn Yankees. And I'm not making this up, and I'm not swearing. I'm just telling you the truth. There's a group of people called damn Yankees, and I'm one of them. And so is Mrs. Finelli. And so is the rest of my family. Now, we had nothing to do with the war of northern aggression. Nobody in my family had anything to do with it. My family wasn't even in the country. Nobody. None of my family on either side was in the country during the war of northern aggression. I'm talking about what's commonly called the Civil War in the United States. So, a Yankee is someone who, let's say from New York, Maine, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, etc., New Jersey, goes down south, let's say to Virginia or North Carolina or South Carolina or Georgia, and visits. That's a Yankee. A damn Yankee is a guy who does the same thing, but doesn't go home. A damn Yankee is a Yankee who puts in roots and does not go home. And literally that's what they call us. I'm not making this up. So there are hostilities. Now, and my family had nothing to do with the Civil War, the war of northern aggression, or the war of northern hostilities. We had nothing to do with it. But we came from a little north of Richmond. So there you have it. There you have it. Well, it looks like we're spiraling down. It looks like you need to prepare. It looks like if you're not preparing for a worse scenario right after the selection, you've lost your mind. I suggest you get food, long-term storage food, and everything else you need. Don't waste money. Don't buy anything you can't afford. We'll be right back. Yeah, we're back. I just did something that, okay, I've got David in Illinois joining us. Welcome, David. I just want to mention that I heard an advertisement just put me over the edge. And, so I'm not going to say which one it was. But
I can guess.
Can you? Well, don't guess. Don't guess. But I called that number. And I got, it rang and rang and rang, and it finally told me what to press, and I pressed it, and then it rang, and it told me I was going to be connected, and it rang and rang and rang. It goes nowhere. But I will talk to them and tell them that, it's probably not a good idea, if they want to earn the respect of people who listen to USA Prepares, to continue with that particular commercial. Now, maybe they offer a product or a service that is, viable. Maybe they do. I don't know. But that particular commercial, I'll bet you that our class finds as offensive as I did.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, welcome, David.
Hey, how you doing? Everything's getting crazy, isn't it?
It is getting crazy. It really is. I don't know what has gotten into people's minds, but literally, they've lost, a lot of people have lost their minds. But yes, please continue.
Now, real quick, I have some other comments afterwards, but, we already had our supplies here, masks and everything, because they were driving nuclear waste right next to us, and we may not be able to get out. My dad told me to get your supplies, because if them spill, you're not going to be able to go anywhere. So, yeah, they've been driving it right around the cities as usually they try to go with that waste, and they would take it to Nevada.
That's right.
There was a dump site.
Yeah, there's an old dump site in Nevada, and they don't really want it either. Nobody wants it. And let me just, since you mentioned this, let's bring up a really good point. And that is, when you select your location to live, class, there's several things in my world that you should avoid. Of course, there's cell towers. And there are power substations. And you'll see these transformers, these great big ugly transformers with lots of wires going in and wires going out on tall power poles. And you'll see them, and they're inside a fenced in chain linked area with barbed wire on the top, okay, to prevent you from going in. And that's probably a good thing. You want to avoid that because of the electromagnetic radiation of that. Then, and that's also a target. Okay, that's a target for people who want to do us harm. Next, you want to avoid a railroad line. Why? Because what goes on rail lines? Well, that would be chlorine gas, acids, toxic chemicals. And do rail lines ever fail, and do trains ever fall off the track? Yeah, they do. Do the tanks ever leak? Yeah, they do. Do they ever have fires? Yeah, they do. And the other thing is, you might be trapped. Okay, so if you're on one side of the tracks and you want to go to the other side of the tracks, and the train comes by twice a day, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times a day, you might be waiting for 20 minutes for these 100+ car long trains, because they're not really in a hurry most of the time. So they're going really slowly down the tracks, and especially in Missouri. So that's another thing you want to avoid. Another one is interstates. You don't want to be close to an interstate, and you don't want to be close to a Walmart, and you don't want to be close to a chemical factory or a refinery or a gas or coal or other kind of power generation plant. So there's a million things you don't want to be near. So I just wanted to share that because of, and of course, radioactivity. And hospitals. You don't want to be near a hospital either, because hospital waste is infectious. And they burn a lot of it. Hospitals burn a lot of their waste. So you look at that nice clean building, and somewhere there's a smokestack. And that's where, the tissue and the protective gear and the plastic hoses and all that get incinerated. And you get a chance to breathe that. David, back to you.
Yeah. You forgot military hardware being delivered through the trains too, but
right, and military installations.
Yeah, and
because they're targets.
Now I seen some articles here over the weekend where the companies are struggling and scrambling to try to get the stock back up in our stores and things of that nature that we're going to need before the next election. Or before the second wave of this outbreak, they're trying to get all that in place beforehand, as well as, you ever think you would see the National Guard being put on alert all over the place, even when you're just talking about an election?
You're absolutely right, David. It's a brand new scenario. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about supplies in Australia. Guineith, what are you seeing? We're going into the top of the hour break. Are you seeing shortages? Because in England, they are now rationing canned goods, like canned vegetables and pasta and, things that will last, that don't spoil, this week. That's what they're doing. They're limiting the purchase because of what they think is to come. They think it's going to get worse in terms of the corona panic. We'll be right back. Hour number 2 of USA Press. Hard to believe that one of the best commercials on the radio was the Tax Doctor with Lily, that young girl's voice. Absolutely brilliant. Hard to believe that they are the same company that has another commercial that's nowhere near as good. Nowhere near as good. Same company. Hard to believe, but it's absolutely true. Guineith, supplies. Are you seeing a problem with getting supplies in Australia?
Well, the main problem here is, there's a couple of problems. One of them is that the supermarkets, by and large, have gone mask crazy. That you just about can't go into the supermarkets without wearing one of their stupid little bits of cloth across your face. And our, premier, our state premier, is a psychopathic madman, Daniel Andrews, and he's recently, or his health minister, I think, actually. But they all work together. They're a big club, and we ain't in it, as George Carlin once said. He said that we're going to have to go to basically P2 masks. So all the cloth masks and all that is now not going to even be acceptable anymore. That everybody's going to have to go and do P2 masks. They're just a bunch of tyrants, really. And this has got nothing to do with the coronavirus. The coronavirus is real enough, but they're using it as an excuse for tyranny. But the main commodity that is in real trouble here in Australia at the moment seems to be rice. It seems likely that we're not going to be able to produce a good rice crop this year, and the main rice company here in this country, which is called Sunrice, has flat out said in the press that they are not going to be able to be selling Australian rice anymore. Most of that rice is produced in far north Queensland, because it's about the only area of the country that has decent rainfall, really. Australia is an extremely dry continent, and unless you've lived here, you really have no idea of the magnitude of the dryness of this place. Like 90% of the Australian continent is desert. And I don't think there's any other continent on Earth, except for Antarctica, where that's the case. And where we are is semi-arid. So it's kind of on the boundary of the desert. If you go 100 miles to the north, you're going to be in the desert. And if you go 150 miles to the west, you're going to be in the desert. And, so that's how it is. But that's the main supply problem here in Australia at the moment, is going to be rice. But this is the other thing I wanted to talk about today, was La Nina. We have got a La Nina event coming, and that is going to mean a failure of our wheat crop. Wheat is the other major grain that we produce here in this country, and we produce a lot of it here in Australia. But usually when there's a La Nina year, the wheat crop fails because it's too wet, there's too much storm damage to the crop, and also you get fungal attacks, things like must and rust and all these other fungi that tend to love the wheat plant because it's too wet in such years. I think that you're going to see a lot of supply chain problems with regards to wheat. And also another thing that is coming down the tracks that you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of problems with sourcing meat, because abattoirs are going out of business. And that's because of the coronavirus, and it's the cascading domino effect. People aren't coming into work, and the small goods manufacturers, the poultry manufacturers, other types of abattoirs, meatworks, processed meat type businesses, they're beginning to have some real problems for that reason. And it means that these sorts of products are going to come hard to come by in the supermarkets. Now, I've gotten out of going to Coles and Woolworths. That's the really two big supermarkets. The supermarket that I tend to go to is Aldi, and I like Aldi. I like Aldi because they're actually nice to their customers. They're actually a family-owned business. where they don't answer to shareholders. They run their own ship, and they run their own ship as they see fit. And personally, I think that's how every business ought to be owned. I think that the stock market is probably not a good thing, because you can get people buy up the stocks and influence the company for their own agendas. But Aldi apparently is owned by a family, as not listed on the share market. They run things, they run the sort of supermarket, from what I've seen, that I think that they would like to attend and shop at. And for that reason, I take my dollars there. And that's just how it is. They are doing their same thing of filling up the center aisles with useless Chinese junk. A lot of it still actually does come from China. The side aisles in Aldi's are food and vegetables. Going into the supermarket, the vegetables are on the left, the food's at the back, the other, the other sort of bulk goods like pasta and stock powders and all that sort of thing are on the right. And, the liquor section is up the front. You're allowed to, I don't know how it is in America, but you're allowed to buy liquor in supermarkets here in Australia if you're over the age of 18. So,
in the United States, it's state by state in the United States. So in Missouri, you can buy wine and beer at a supermarket. And then they have liquor stores. But some, I believe in Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state runs the liquor store. And it's called ABC, Alcoholic Beverage Control, or Alcoholic Beverage Consortium, or Alcoholic Beverage Cartel. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's ABC. And you mentioned Aldi, A-L-D-I, and that is a grocery store / supermarket chain. And class, it is the only company that Walmart cannot compete with. They cannot compete well with Aldi, because the manager of the store runs the forklift. The manager of the store sits at the cash register. The manager of the store is stocking the shelves. And so is everybody else. And they might have 5 employees for the entire operation per store, and they are busy. And if you want to talk to them for 30 seconds, it's kind of a wish, because they're really busy. They all know where the stock is. They all know what they have. They all know what the inventory is. So if you ask any one of them, hey, do you have, I see you're out of this particular item. Do you have any more? Sure. How many would you like? And, okay, I'll bring it out for you. And they'll go into the back room. They'll stop what they're doing. They'll go into the back room and they'll bring it out. And they're busy. I mean, they don't have any time to waste. They are the busiest employees you've ever seen. They are the most professional, and they are the best at what they do, and Walmart cannot compete with them. Impossible. So that's really the way it is, because every employee there knows everybody else's job. And it seems as if when a new person gets there, they're trained. They seem to know what's going on. It's not like, here's a job, stand over here and, watch. And you can ask anybody, do you have or may I buy some more of? And they have the answer. They don't shrug their shoulders and go, I don't know. They don't do that. David, are you finding the same thing in Illinois? Are you finding that some items are out of stock?
Oh, yes. Now, all these by us, our manager will even follow us around in case we need something. He knows we like to try to find our stuff on our own. But he'll let us know, I'll be over here if you need to look for something. But you're right, they know everything. Now, what happened to me was I went to the Chinese outlet, and I figured since all these had a limit on canned goods, I'm just going to grab a couple of cases of theirs. Well, there's a problem, and I seen some other things at that particular store where the quality control in these factories, they're laxing. It's like they're not concerned with quality control. We found sticks in the green beans. We found packaging that was sealed that wasn't sealed on the inside. So what else are they missing in the quality control department of these businesses where they're not caring and they're sending this stuff to the store to be sold?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And so I happened to request for dinner some canned corn, cream style. And I don't have it very often, but I mentioned it. And so there was a pot on the side of the stove, and it was sitting there, not on the stove. And it was highly irregular in our house. And Mrs. Finelli and our son said, yeah, there's some black stuff in the corn. Now, it was in date. Everything was good. But yes, they missed the quality. The same is true with oatmeal. The same is true with a lot of things. The sealing of the packages inside the boxes is substandard. The quality control is substandard. People are asleep at the switch, asleep at the wheel. They're not paying attention, and management is to blame. Management is to blame because it all starts with management. Management says, pay attention or it's okay if you're sleeping. That's the way it is. So you blame management and you call these people up, which is exactly what I did when I heard a commercial I didn't like. I called them up. I'd like to talk to them, but they weren't there. So anyway, I looked at Sam's Club while we were talking. They have for sale Del Monte Golden Sweet Whole Kernel Corn, an 8-pack, out of stock. They have a 12-pack, out of stock. They have another kind, a sweet corn, Members Mark sweet corn, out of stock. So, but you can buy the 106 ounce number 10 can, the 106 ounce size for $4.34 at Sam's Club. But you got to go to this club to get it. So there are items that are disappearing. And corn, did you ever think that one of the largest commodities in the United States would be unavailable? Did you ever think that? Well, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. So get what you need right now, in my opinion. Or consider getting what you need. We'll be right back. Class, it's really simple. If you look at times of strife and chaos, there's lots of starvation. If you look at the War of Northern Aggression, if you look at World War I, if you look at World War II, nobody except the elite were well fed. Everybody else was starving. No kidding. So if you know that, would you buy some food that will get you through this mess? Would you? I suggest that you consider that. And what works? Pasta? And I know it's not good for you. I know that spaghetti sauce with high fructose corn syrup is not good for you, but it beats the alternative of starvation. It really does. Corn, I know it's GMO. I know that, and I know it's not good for you. But I'm going to have some items that if I have to help our neighbors because they didn't figure it out, what's happening, we might be able to help them somewhat. A little bit. And I suggest you consider that. Because if you can't help them and they're hungry, they might eat you for lunch. Your neighbors. Guineith, any comments?
I grew up in Rotorua, which used to be inhabited by a cannibal tribe. And when hard times happened back in the day, before the white man came, that's what literally used to happen. They would get a crop failure, and I mean, they had different crops than what we have. They had a type of courgette or zucchini, they had pumpkins, and in the north of New Zealand they had sweet potatoes. But other than that, they didn't really have a lot of crops. They ate from the forest. And if it was a good year in the forest, then they all did well. If it was a bad year, they literally went and ate their neighbours. Or they'd actually start off eating their slaves. And then after they'd finished eating their slaves, then they'd start eating their neighbours. So we're actually not kidding. We're not advocating it. We're not recommending it. We're just saying there's a history of this sort of thing happening in the world. And, people forget that because good times, they tend to last a while and people forget how it used to be. But there's, when I was at Melbourne University, one thing that I studied was, the history of the Highland clearances and the persecution of the Gaelic people, both in Scotland and in Ireland, by the English. And it was terrible. During the potato famine, for example, people were eating the grass growing in front of their houses. They were not even cooking it. They were literally cutting handfuls of grass and trying to chew it because they were so hungry. And there were many, many reports of people finding people starved to death with their mouths stained green because they were trying to eat the grass growing in front of their house, because there was no food in the country. And that was a genocide, pure and simple, because although the potato crop failed in Ireland in the year 1845 and kept on with crop failures until 1850, every other crop was bountiful. Every other crop was great. But the English were forcibly exporting food out of Ireland all through that era of history from 1845 to 1850. Ireland produced every single year a net surplus of food, and yet the Irish people starved. There was a census done in 1845, which the Irish population was 12 million people living in Ireland. And by 1850, the Irish population was 3 million people. 9 million Irish people disappeared between the years of 1845 and 1850. And maybe 10% of those, emigrated. The rest died. And that is something of what we might be facing in the next 5 years.
And here's another thing. These horrible times seem to last about 4 years. World War I, World War II, the Great Famine in Ireland. We'll be right back. Class, throughout history, when things get really bad, people do things that they wouldn't normally do in the good old days. And I broadcasted yesterday with Sunny Skidmore. She is absolutely the delightful lady of radio. She's 90 years old. She's had both of her legs amputated, and she is a shining beacon for perseverance, stick-to-itiveness, positive mental attitude. And that's on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum, you have people who are at each other's throats, kind of like you saw during last night's circus. And I've mentioned to Sonny that I'd lost some previous friends as a result of my unwavering, immutable position on the coronavirus being real. Of course, it's being manipulated, and we all know that. But the virus is real. And I mentioned that to her. And she indicated that it was a good thing to lose those former friends because they weren't friends. Now, as we go down this road, you're going to lose some friends, too. You're going to find there are people whom you absolutely, positively thought you can trust. And you've learned now that you can't trust them. And it is way better to know now than it is to learn later when they've moved into your house and they've eaten your food. So, think about the trustworthiness, the reliability, the integrity, the honesty, and the perseverance of people whom you are planning to help. Think about that, and think about, can you really trust them? And what I learned and what I believed was the cracks and the chinks in the armor of those former friends. I was right. I didn't really want to believe that I was right, but I was right. In my heart, I was right, and I knew I couldn't trust them. And I am so glad that they have thrown me overboard. They threw me overboard. I'm delighted. They're not coming back. I don't want to help them. I won't help them. They've proven to me that they are not trustworthy. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, You can go watch the television series Combat, and you'll see what adversity and strife is like. And you'll see why it's so important to be able to trust those people in your circle, your inner circle. And you all have inner circles. We do too. So trustworthiness is really, really important. And I believe that you're going to find that, there are lots of people who you think are your friends who are absolutely there for what they get out of it from you. Meaning, they're in it for what you provide them. It's kind of like a one-way street. I believe you're going to find that. And it's better to find out now than later. Guineith, then David, your thoughts?
Okay. How can I say this? Back when I was studying about Irish history, I had to learn about the various political teams that were active at that time. I'm talking about in the second half of the 20th century. And one thing that I noticed was that in some of these teams, they had to operate covertly. They had to be very loyal to each other, and they tended to operate in cells of 5 people or less. So, and these 5 people would get to know each other really, really, really well, and they would absolutely be able to trust each other's with each other's lives. Okay? The reason why I'm saying this is they found that worked. They found that if their group got any bigger than 5 people, and by people I mean it maybe count as a couple would be one person, okay? But if it was any bigger than 5 people, then the risks of getting infiltrated were simply too high. And that is why the Irish were able to operate so effectively for so long and to not be infiltrated and to be able to do what they did back in the day. That was a really key point. And I think that if you can find 5 people that you can absolutely trust with your very life, then you're doing very, very well. I don't think that most people could even find 5 people that they could absolutely trust with their life. That's just how it is. And but I would say that 5 is the optimum figure, and that has been borne out through over 50 years of that particular conflict that it was going on from around about the end of World War II until about 1997. That conflict was ongoing, and they were able to fight that war very effectively against the British because they had that sort of military structure. They didn't have a vast army, but all of these cells of 5 people, they were all interlocking, okay? But nobody could ever, even if they were caught, even if they were tortured, nobody could ever betray more than 5 people to the enemy, which was the British. And, I mean, I think that even if this doesn't descend into a civil war, which personally I think it is going to descend into civil war, 5 people is probably about it. That's probably about right.
David, your comments?
Here we probably only have 1, possibly 2 families that we can actually rely on that we could trust. Other than that, I'm in the dark. I don't have, because they've done something in the past. Each one of the people that we did know, that shows me I cannot trust them at all. And I do. This is I never thought I'd be in this situation where everybody says, prepare for this, prepare for this. You never thought we would see 17-year-old kids defending themselves with an AR in the street. You never thought, we're already here. So, at this stage, it's definitely a possibility. So I am worried like heck that it's going to happen when the elections don't go either way. You know, I don't know what to do. You know, and then I don't know about this. Is something I asked Gwyneth. Does your country, I've heard like Canada as far as Australia where they're giving their citizens $2,000 a month for stimulus. Here in America, we got over 40 million people they're estimating that is going to be evicted because they're told they're not allowed to go to work. You can't make the society not work, but yet not helping them some way, shape, or form. And it's like we got two big boys on the block fighting, and all the rest of us are the fall guys. You know, it's that crazy.
Yeah.
Is your question, David? Is your question, is the country of Australia handing out money to keep things civil? I think that might be your question.
Right.
Yes.
They're not here.
The ballpark figure would be if people have lost their jobs, it would be about $2,000 a month. Maybe a bit more, maybe $2,500. I don't know the exact figure. It's between $2,000 and $2,500 a month. And that's just to stop people from losing it completely.
Let me put this in perspective. People with full bellies don't riot. Yeah. Okay. So here at the farm, if we earned $2,000 a month, that'd be great. That would be great. I'm talking a farm of 241 acres. Cows. Machinery. If we could earn $2,000 a month, we'd be in high cotton. So what we're talking about here is people getting $2,000 a month for doing absolutely zero. Is that right, Guineith?
Well, they're supposed to, here in Victoria, there's no requirement at the moment for them to apply for jobs, but they're supposed to apply for something like 8 or 10 jobs a month. But there's no jobs to apply for because even in the rest of Australia, these people that think they run the show have succeeded in destroying the entire economy. That's even outside of Victoria, even in places like the Gold Coast. I've got people that I know in the Gold Coast, and they're saying there's shops. This is Queensland. This is like Millionaires Row in Queensland, and there is shops boarded up left, right, and centre on the Gold Coast in Queensland.
All right, in Missouri. Near us, about 25 miles away, there was a supermarket that went out of business. It was a big building. Okay, it was in like a local neighborhood mall. So they had the supermarket as the centerpiece. Then they had the Chinese restaurant. Then they had the real estate office, the insurance office, and a whole bunch of little businesses on either side of this supermarket. So it was one big parking lot. You could park and go to any of these businesses, and there's probably like 15 businesses plus the supermarket. Supermarket closed. And so what they do with the building, well, the Missouri Employment Commission, I believe that's what it's called, set up shop. So they repainted the front of it. They put a big sign up. It's like you can apply for a job here. So you'd go there if you lost your job. This is in the good old days, several years ago. You'd go there and you'd sit at the computer terminal and you would enter information and you would be in the database for someone who's looking for a job. The only problem was there are no jobs. So it was false hope and squandering the people's money, the villagers' money, in painting up this storefront illusion that these people were going to help you. So going to the state to ask them for help for you to get a job where there are no jobs was a sham, in my opinion. And what happened? They closed up shop like a year later. I guess people figured out, why go there? Because there are no jobs. You're entering information into a database and it just sits there. There's no jobs to be had. That is the current situation, except now it's worse, right? It's worse because now it looks like most restaurants are closed. Most businesses are being boarded up. Most businesses are saying, sorry, we're gone. Literally. That's what's happening. Let me tell you how bad it really is. in the last 24 hours. Disney. Now, there's no real reason for Disney to exist other than to temporarily put people in a mental place that does not exist. Okay? Disney just cut 28,000 jobs. Now,
Wow.
that's no big deal except if you work there, right? But does that mean that you're not going to get that shirt or that pair of shoes or that hose for your car or the radiator or what? No. Disney doesn't make anything that is of substance. Okay, who else? Well, these guys actually do. Shell. Royal Dutch Shell. 9,000 jobs. 9,000. And there's another company called Marathon. They are a petroleum company as well. They have announced hundreds of layoffs. And these jobs, are they coming back? Not likely. Not likely. We'll be right back. Okay, class, I guess you heard about the 9/11, the emergency number not operating yesterday across the entire country because micro shaft 360 had a problem. Now, if you think about it, who in their right mind would say, hey, let's build an emergency system and we will base it on some company in Washington State, Microsoft, and we'll let them handle it all. And it'll be dependent on the internet. If you wanted to buy a voice over IP system and like Vonage, and they'll send you a conversion box and you hook it up to the internet and you plug your telephone into it, and you can make lower cost telephone calls, etc. over the internet. They will tell you up front, do not depend on this for an emergency because it may go down. That's what a company like Vonage will tell you about the internet, because it is not up as much as you would expect it to be up. It goes down a lot. So they say that. So why would an emergency center set up a system that's dependent on the internet? Why would they do that? So 911 lines across Michigan and a whole bunch of states went down yesterday because they're blaming it on Microsoft 360, which is software that you really don't own. You just kind of use it. It's nuts. And so I don't have software like that. I've got computers and the software lives on my computers. I'm not going to rent any cloud space. I'm not going to put my data in the cloud. Think about that. Put it in the cloud. Which cloud? I don't know. But I'll put my data there because I'll feel really good because it's in some cloud somewhere where I don't know where it is. And I can't even find these people. I can't even talk to them. I don't know where they are to drive my car through the front door. Are you kidding me? And that's where we are. And, I'm kind of frosted. So the fire department, the local volunteer fire department said to us, hey, we're looking for a few members for the board of directors. So my son and I went there. And so they decided that they were going to interview us for the board of directors. I was willing to volunteer. It's a non-paid position. So was our son. So we went there, and these guys were talking about software, and they're talking about, QuickBooks, and we can buy the version that lives in the cloud. And I said, are you kidding me? You're going to put information about all of the residents, where they live and so forth, in the cloud? Are you kidding? If you're going to do that, I want nothing to do with you guys. As a matter of fact, I won't even be a paying member to subscribe to your offering to put out a fire if you're going to do that. And I walked out. I thought, wow, what a hothead. These people have no clue what they're doing. They figured they'd get $15 off by using the cloud subscription rather than buying the software and having it live on their own computer. They said, but it's so much easier. See, what we can do is we can have multiple people entering data at the same time in the cloud, and it doesn't have to live on somebody's computer. It's so much better, and we can save $15. There's only like 300 total people that might even consider subscribing, 300 of them. How many times do they have to input data for these 300 people? Once a year. Once a year. And they click, renew or not renew. Kind of like that. We have lost our minds by depending on the cloud, the internet, and not keeping it local. Hospitals went offline all across the country yesterday. Hospitals went offline. Why? Because they were dependent on the internet. So what does this mean? Appointments could not be made, honored, or even confirmed. Prescriptions could not be ordered or confirmed or even looked at. Dispensed. Across the United States. How does this happen? Because we have become dependent on the computer systems. And, you know, it didn't used to be like this. And it used to be you could go to the doctors for $7 a visit. You could have an operation for $750, not 15 or 20 or 50,000. $750. I know for a fact. You could have knee surgery for $750 in the good old days. But now with the automation and the sophistication of computerization, it costs like many, 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 many times more. Gwyneth, any comments?
Yeah, I know that what you're saying is true because a number of years ago I had a skin cancer removed and I had to have general anesthetic to get this cancer removed and it cost me $800. And then I had to, you know, a month later have another section of tissue removed and that cost another $800. So these two operations cost $1,600, but it was two operations and each operation was $800. It was general anesthetic.
David, very quickly, got 20 seconds. 20 seconds, David.
Well, when my wife had to have her eyes looked at, it cost over $2,000 just for a follow-up appointment.
Wow. That's just
Class,
great.
we're in big trouble, and we're going down. David, thank you so much for being with us. Gwyneth, thank you for staying up late in Australia. Class, this is USA Prepares.